Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be rating / tier listing all of the passives from Bswarm. By all of the passives I mean the passives that come from like Supreme Star Amulet or like pieces of gear. What I'm not including is like the passives that come from bees, so things like gathering bubbles from Bubble Bee I won't be including. But yeah, let's get into the video. First up we have Bubble Bombs, which is a passive that comes from the Bubble Mask, I believe. What this passive does, it will spawn a few bubbles in the field every so often when you pick up some blue ability tokens. It's nothing special, but it's not a bad passive, so I'll probably go with rare tier for it. Next up we got the Coconut Haste, which comes from the Coconut Clogs, I believe, but it also transfers to the Gummy Boots. All in all, it's quite a bad passive. It's only really good for getting a bunch of loot fast if you want to steal from a Sprout or something. No real purpose, so I'm going to go for D tier for this one. Now we have Coin Scatter, which comes from the Honey Mask, but once again it transfers over to the Gummy Mask if you have it. This is quite a good passive for mid game especially, even as it's a really good source of being able to empty your bag without having to go back to the hive. For endgame it's not as good, although it was quite an annoying passive when we had to do it for a quest in 2021 for Honeybee. It's a good passive, so I'll probably put it in B tier. Diamond Drain is next up, and this one's a bit of a funny one because some people might argue it's not a great passive, but if you just bought the Diamond Mask, it's actually very good, especially if you still have like Spirit Bear to do. I wouldn't say it's as good as Coin Scatter, but not as bad as Bubble Bombs, so I'm gonna have to put it in B tier alongside Coin Scatter. These next two I'm going to do together, as they literally serve the exact same purpose in being the red pulse and the blue pulse, if I'm right. They don't do much. They do the exact same thing as Crimson and Cobalt Bee, if I'm right. They just collect a bunch of flowers, so I'm gonna go for D tier for both of them, assuming there's no real purpose for them. Next up we have the Gummy Trail from the Gummy Boots. Honestly, this passive is not worth the 100 billion and all the ingredients that you have to buy for the Gummy Boots. It doesn't do much, the Goo Trail goes away really quickly, it doesn't really benefit anyone, even early game players. For me, it's quite an obvious D tier. This next one is actually quite interesting in being Guiding Star. This is because it can be really good for mid-game players who are completing Spirit Bear and have just unlocked Supreme Star Amulet, seeming as it will give you times 2.5 pollen and times 1.5 capacity if I'm right. And it's also really good for alt accounts trying to boost their main accounts in a really big boost with like Honey Day buff or something. For me it's quite an obvious A tier. Next up is Gummy Bear Morph. In my opinion this is a very good passive for mid game and end game players, seeming as it will literally cover the whole field in goo every 10th Gummy Bee token or every 30th Gumdrop if I'm right. Very obvious S tier, it's better than Guiding Star. Still on the theme of goo, we now have Gummy Star, which is obviously the primary passive in a white hive. Obviously activating this passive is actually quite RNG based, but once it's activated obviously it's crucial in doing a white boost. Without a doubt it's definitely A tier. Next up we have the red counterpart of the Bubble Bombs passive, which is the Inferno passive, which comes from the Fire Mask and transfers to the Demon Mask. This has really similar characteristics to the Bubble Bombs, except I'd probably say it's just a B-Tech version of the X-Flame. It's not the worst passive, but it's not the best passive at the same time, so I'm gonna go for C tier similar to Bubble Bombs. Next up we have the Inspired Coconuts passive, which comes from the Coconut Canister. This passive is similar to the Coconut Haste passive in the sense that its purpose doesn't really do much, although I wouldn't say it is as bad because it does serve a bit more of a purpose I guess. Definitely not as good as B tier, but not as bad as D tier, so I'm going to put it in C tier. Next up we have the Emergency Coconut Shield, which also comes from the Coconut Canister. When this passive is activated, it will make you immune to any form of mob attack for a few seconds. This can especially be good for killing the cave monsters, seeming as they can instantly kill you without this passive. As a result, I'd probably put it in C tier for the same reasons as other stuff I've put in there. It's not as bad as D tier, but it's not that good at the same time. Going back to the Supreme Star Amulet passives, now we have Popstar. Obviously, this is the main passive in Blue Hives, and every 30th Blue Bomb token, it will activate the Popstar aura, which contributes to Bubble Bloat. In my opinion, this is probably one of the best passives in the game, as without it, Blue Hives would be far worse. Without a doubt, it's definitely S tier. This next passive comes from the Petal Belt, if I'm right. From my experience, it seems to be one of those passives that activates in the background and doesn't really do much apart from converting a small amount of pollen. For this reason, it only makes sense to put it in D tier. Now we have Scorching Star, which is of course the main passive in the Red Hive. Similar to Popstar, without this passive, Red Hives wouldn't be as good. So for this reason, I'd probably put it in S tier without a doubt, and without much reason apart from that. Continuing on the theme of Supreme Star Amulet passives, we now have Starsaw. This passive is incredibly good, as I consider it to be quite versatile, seeming as it can pretty much work in any hive, including obviously Blue Hive, Red Hive and White Hive, and sometimes even Mixed Hive with Guiding Star. For those reasons, I'll probably put it in S tier. Following on from that, we have Star Shower, which drops a bunch of Inspire on the field every 40th boost token, I believe. This passive can take some adjusting too, however once you're used to it, it can be a great secondary passive. Overall, I'd probably have to put it in A tier, seeming as it is quite versatile like Starsaw, however I wouldn't quite consider it to be as good, hence why I've put it there. Finally, we have the X-Flame, where every 25th battle ability token will spawn a bunch of flames in the field. Of course, I'd have to put it higher than C tier, as it is a much improved version of Ignite, however it doesn't quite reach the peaks of S tier, or even A tier, so I'll be placing it in B tier. So that's my tier list for all of the passives in VSwarm. Let me know if you agree or not, as I know quite a lot of people will disagree, and I know I will get slandered in the comments. Besides that, be sure to join my Discord server, as next week we'll be starting a Halloween event, where every few days we'll be doing an event, whether it be in VSwarm or outside of VSwarm, so stay tuned for that. Also be sure to like and subscribe, as I want to hit 20k before the new year. Apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye.